Good afternoon. We are offering live interpretation in Spanish during this meeting. If you wish to hear the Spanish interpretation, please click the interpretation button at the bottom right of your Zoom screen. You'll see a globe icon. If you are joining via the Zoom smartphone app, select your language by clicking More or the three dots in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select Language Interpretation, then choose Spanish and click Done. If you wish to hear only the interpreter and not the original speakers, be sure to click Mute Original Audio. Everyone must choose a language. Please do not stay in the default option. Buenas tardes. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación simultánea al español durante esta reunión. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, haga clic en el botón Interpretation o Interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla Zoom. Verá un icono de globo terráqueo. Si se está uniendo a través de la aplicación Zoom para smartphone, seleccione su idioma haciendo clic en More o Más o en los tres puntos en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione Language Interpretation, interpretación del idioma, luego elija Spanish o español y haga clic en Done o Listo. Si desea escuchar solo al intérprete y no a los oradores originales, asegúrese de hacer clic en Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Todos deben elegir un idioma, por favor no se quede en la posición de apagado predeterminada.
O'clock p.m. Thank you if you are joining us online for your patience. We kind of reversed our order and we did a little working session prior to opening our official meeting. So I appreciate your patience. So our first item on our agenda would be always to approve the meeting, the minutes from our previous meeting back in December, on December 3rd. The SSC had an opportunity to look at the meeting minutes from the last meeting over the weekend. And at this point, are there any corrections to the minute, SSC? Okay, so this is a consent item. So all in favor of approving the December 3rd SSC meeting, say aye. Aye. And any nay? Abstentions? Okay. So that is the first item. The second item is we always hold a place for our DLAC to report. DLAC is going to be doing a look at their data today, and their meeting this afternoon is after ours is aligned in many ways with what we are going to be doing. So feel free to stay for that meeting. It starts at 6 o'clock. So, and I just want to thank specifically Michelle Guarino for collaborating and helping to gather the data that we have requested. And so it was nice to be a thinking partner with her, and we really appreciate her efforts. The next item on our agenda would be an opportunity for public comment and seeing if there's any online that would have an opportunity to comment. Okay, thank you. And then, so this is really a working session for us. We are at the stage where at our last meeting, we gathered ideas for the data we wanted to look for our program evaluation. And so today we are going to be looking at data, and we are going to be inputting the data that we see into the program evaluation. In the past few years, for when the SSC did look at data, when we were doing a needs assessment, it was definitely more of looking at data for wondering what the data told us and noticings about the data. But so this meeting differs in that way, where we are actually taking action with the data. We are looking at the data and we are inputting it into our program evaluation. And then from looking at that data, then we do the dive into looking at the data and what that data is telling us. I love to think of Sarah Peterson when we do look at data, and Greta's going to guide us through this data conversation. When we do look at data, we always remember there's a student behind that data. And when we look at data, there is an inclination to have a bias towards negativity, but there is definitely what you're going to hear, especially when we think about the first part of our program evaluation, that there's some real celebrations too. So it just is an important thing as we look at data and students in our care and families in our care, that we think of our first essential agreement, and that's always trying to remain an asset-based language. So just as a reminder that one's super important as we look at data. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at the first program evaluation. And this is the one where we talked about Title I funds are being used for a portion of the whole child entry assessment inventory. The name is up to AEA. We have a few kind of fun suggestions, but that is up to AEA of how they want to call that bridge between summer and school and starting kids coming new to our program. And so for this one, I'm going to have Matt kind of talk about the data, the quantitative data that we asked for, and then we are going to fill it in on this program evaluation. Sarah's going to actually kind of capture it on here. And so just a reminder that our goal working right now is to input this, it's actually quantitative data, into our program evaluation. So Matt, I think probably the best way to think about this is kind of think about the first thing that your group asked for, and that was the number of new to AEA sixth grade students served. Do you want to?
Sure. So when inviting students to our Summer Stein program or Summer Bridge program, we had a little bit of extra room for our middle school. So we went ahead and invited all new to AEA families and students. If they had a sibling of a lower or higher grade level that was also joining us, we would accommodate them. This was done to, one, help them join the middle school, join the school, meet some of the staff, be comfortable with the building. And also for our literacy team, we planned with them to have literacy and ELD pullouts with Miss Rita. And then she took it upon herself to concentrate her efforts in the beginning on our new sixth graders. There was, we have 20 new students, 18 sixth graders, 1 seventh and 1 first grader. And then go through and test them to see if they needed or qualified for literacy help, pullout or ELD classes as they entered into the school year. I believe 6 of those students that were tested ended up needing or qualified for literacy help. That gave us a jump on the school year instead of trying to not only identify the new students to AEA in the first week of school from our literacy team, but also taking time to pull them out in classes. A lot of this was already done and taken care of, so it gave our ELD team and our literacy team a big jump start.
May I have you repeat? I'm sorry, I was slow on the uptake. Can you clarify again how many of the 20 were sixth graders? I know you got I think the 17.
It was
15.
15.
15, and then how many the first grader?
There was 1 first grader, 1 seventh grader, and then there were there's a couple that never showed up.
So
They were invited.
out of the 20,
Then out of the 20, how many were identified as needing additional services?
6.
Which is important for our work because, of course, a new student coming in is, we don't, they're, we get data, but, we don't want to make assumptions if they are our Title I school, Title I students. So this is great because many kids benefited from this summer bridge concept, and then they got that early jump on 6 incoming 6th graders. And I did just kind of take a little snapshot of the actual literacy support they received immediately during the summer sign. And Rita is really to be commended how she jumped on that because from 8:10 to 8:40 during summer sign, 3 students from the 6th grade got Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 got Tuesday, Thursday. That's a big chunk of just support. And then the new 7th grade student got from 10:55 to 11:20 every day. So what an advantage to get that understanding of that student.
Absolutely.
Schedule data, Megan.
Yes.
Would you like me to capture that somewhere?
So it's not on here, but Rita did do dibbles. So for number 2 in our program evaluation, if anybody needs a hard copy. But our program evaluation, she did dibbles. And so I don't think you need to capture the schedule, but I just wanted to point out that the literacy support was immediate for these students, which is really exciting. That's a celebration. And then number 3, what led to this being part of our work was the discussion with Dr. Diaz and the previous year, the frustration for 6th grade teachers, that how long it took to get this data for our new students, and it took 6 weeks. And so you can see that for number 3, it was immediate. So day 1, they had this data for incoming 6th graders. The number 4 would be the percentage of middle school students who, this is a baseline year. So for this data, number 4, the percentage of middle school students who test out of ELA support, this is where we continue to work with administration and Greta and Matt Fasolo as our real conduit to middle school to see now those 6 that were identified really early, they're continuing to receive the ELA support here now. And how is that working for them? And are they needing to stay in it or are they coming out of that? But this is a baseline year. If you remember from our training, most program evaluations are like 3 years. And then number 5, we had a discussion on the leadership, SSC leadership. You asked for ELA score grades for those students, those Title I kids is kind of what those 6 kids. We kind of decided as a leadership that the screener, so the DIBELS, or the early beginning of the year screener is probably, because that's nationally normed and it's just a more objective data point instead of grades. Grades can be kind of, they have a different element to it. So again, we don't know that now, but that would be like next year. How are these students this year? How did they screen in that beginning of the year screener or whatever they do at the beginning of the year? Yes.
So the only way for us to understand ongoing how those 6 students are progressing through the DIBELS screener now.
According to our program evaluation.
We could also track if those 6 students in particular, if they're also enrolled in ELA support for their flex classes, and if they are taking either German or Spanish, or if they've been enrolled in our English language development courses. So each of those things they can be added to and also tested out of.
Do you happen to know if the sixth graders, their attendance pattern looks like? Ones that, these 15 that are sort of becoming this cohort to watch?
Yeah.
I don't know what everyone else thinks. I would just be curious to know how much of the treatment they are.
Yeah, we can create a group in analytics and insights, and then we can easily just filter the data out and track their attendance patterns.
That would be wonderful.
And again, that was like a moving forward and a baseline concept. Okay. We good with program number 1? Okay, so program number 2, this is kind of the meat of what we're doing, and Greta's going to guide us through this one. This is the one where the Title I funds, a portion of it is going to the reading interventionalist ELD specialist position. And again, this is a kind of a baseline that we're creating. You kind of want to start?
Sure, and we have some slides too. So I'm looking at how we look to analyze the program, and prior to that, I think, is this the full dashboard?
This would be what they would look at if they were to go to the dashboard, which is available to the public.
Right. And so I'm toggling between slides here.
This is on the slideshow.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to go live.
Okay,
Yeah. So
yeah.
the next one.
Okay, so what we can suggest are, English. Yes, so what I want to highlight here first, this is our all students dashboard, and this is a California dashboard that is done annually, and it is solely based, at least, so the academic is solely based on the CAST scores, the California state standardized tests. There's also chronic absenteeism, which means that students have missed 10% or more of their instructional days, and then our suspension rate. And I think something we need to celebrate is that both in English language arts and in math, all students are in green this year. That means that they have made progress compared to years past. Now, when you break that down, however, there's certain subgroups that have made more progress than others. And so that's part of what we do here is we look at the subgroups, especially our English language learners and our socioeconomically disadvantaged students. And so there are things to celebrate. We want to keep that in mind, that we are going in the right direction. But as we look at our specific targeted students, I want to move on to the next slide. And I think it's your point.
Do you want this slide right here on your screen? No, that's okay.
Well, one of the data points that we were asked to look at is to really look at the percentage of students who are reclassified as fluent English language learners. And so this is actually showing, not this one for us so much, sorry.
That's okay.
Yep, we didn't rehearse.
No, we didn't.
Okay, we can go for this. Oh. This one, yes, this is really small. So I'm going to look at it in mine. So over the years, we want to look at, because it does impact our English language learner scores when we look at them. And so for students to reclassify, they get a 4 on the LPAC, which is our English language development measurement. And then they have to show proficiency in English language arts. And so when they reclassify, we move them from what we call our English language learners, multi-language learners, over to reclassified English language learners. And so one of the things we want to look at is that overall, our students who made progress, who made progress on the LPAC, declined over the last 3 years. So even prior to this, I think in 2023, there was almost 65 or so percent of students who moved up a level in LPAC, at least one level. Last year, it was about 46%, and 2 years ago, and then in 2024, the spring of this year, we are at about 39%. Moving back to that other slide, one thing I do want to point out, and it's really hard to see, but if you look at the number of our English language learners, actually go down one more. Right. Yes, that's the one. If you look at our number of English language learners in 2023, we had 238 English language learners who took the CASP that year. And then of those, there were 81, not of those, besides that, 81 of the students who took the CASP were recently reclassified. That means they had been ELs, but they had been reclassified either here at our school. And so they were, there's 81. If you look at last year, because of the number of reclassifications, we had 206 who were English language learners and 110 who were recently reclassified. So that shifts our numbers. And so once our English language learners becomes RFEPs, what we call them, they're not measured as English language learners anymore. And so that it's a shifting cohort. And so we want to recognize the fact that a lot of our students have been reclassified, and that is a big celebration too. This year in this fall of 2004, we reclassified another, I think, 14 or 15 students. And so that's another measurement. We want to be able to celebrate, and we do a really good job. Our team, our English language learner support team and our wellness team does a great job of celebrating those students. But moving over is a celebration. And so we want to honor those students. When we look at, however, we have work to do. So when we look at, let me go back here to slides. So I have the numbers from the LPAC, slide 16, 17, which is, let's do that one. Okay, so let's go to slide 15. Yep, that's okay. So when we look just at our English language learners, this is the percentage in ELA who actually met or exceeded standards. So we are still at 10%. Again, it's a snapshot, and it's a shifting group. And in ELA and in math, 11.5%. So we know this is still an area of high need for our English language learners that we need to continue to support in both the English language arts area, but also in mathematics. A lot of math is about vocabulary, and we want to make sure we're addressing that in our integrated and designated ELD support. So this has been a consistent area that we have been working on as a staff across the schools. I don't have all of the PDs that the middle school has done, but I know a lot of them have replicated what we did at elementary school. So far, and we've had 4 of our PDs, and that's including understanding the LPAC, looking at strategies to support students such as our GLAD students, which are research-based strategies that do support English language development. We have looked at what that designated and integrated looks like at elementary, because it is different. I know middle school has separate classes where they can focus on those specific skills, but in elementary, we have one class and they have to be able to have whole group instruction, we call that the integrated, that supports the multi-language levels of our students, but also designated time to be able to speak to and work on specific skills across the content areas too. So this is within our IB units, within English language arts, and within that. We had another PD, so teams got together to really look at what they're doing in their classrooms. We had another PD where the teachers went through the LPAC themselves. So the classroom teachers to understand a lot more about what that test is asking. So as we're trying to support our students, the teachers are knowing what they need the support with. And at least in reference to that test. Now, it's not a teach to the test because language is so dynamic, but it gives us an idea of the kind of questions that the kids are going to be asked so that they're comfortable with it, because it's a standardized test, and a lot of standardized tests are pretty intimidating to students, so we want to get them prepared. And then we also had a PD where we were using AI to help develop some lessons and around the English language standards, English language development standards. So we had a number of PDs to support that. Let's see. I think that hits the 4. I go back to that area that, all our students are in the green when we're looking at the dashboard. But here, we still have to recognize that 10% or 11% are still hitting that standard on the CASP. And so that's an area that we continue to need to address.
Thank you. So we're on the right track with supporting. Any question for Greta?
I do. Can you go back to the comparison with the RFEP and how those reclassified students are performing here?
This is math. You want the ELA or the math?
Either, but let's do ELA. Sure.
Okay.
So I'm seeing in 23, the RFEP students increased, and in 24, they maintained. Is that what I'm saying? I'm sorry.
Yep. So RFEP, yes, and they are hitting close to standard.
Okay. Yeah. Just in my line of work, I often work in support of long-term English learners. As we know, there's a new dashboard indicator that wasn't there before about English learner progress. And so as AEA is a dual language school where language learning is one of the tenets of the school's charter, I'm also looking at your reclassified students data. Research will show that when students reclassify, because their brains have become so active and can think, the bilingual brain is different than the monolingual brain. There are stronger connections, dendrites, the areas talk to each other with higher intensity. That those students outperform their EO peers. And I see that on the state level data, just an aggregate in 23-24, RFEP students across California and ELA scored 58% versus a whole 15% lower for just EO. And so I think that's a really exciting opportunity for AEA because you are known in the community in San Diego as being a language program. The more students that you continue to RFEP, they should be increasing at a pace that outperforms anyone else in the neighborhood who isn't in a dual language program. So I just want to really celebrate the RFEP rate and to continue to maybe watch those students as students of success that might serve as proof of concept for those that we are worried about.
Yeah, and especially, and thank you for pointing that out, when you think about the elementary model, where on top of that, there's German. So they're getting in some cases, even less of that English instruction, coupled with German language instruction plus the ELD. So they're making growth in a model with where typical non-dual emergent schools are getting more actual direct instruction in that English language. So I think that's
Depending on the model.
Right.
Depending
Yes.
on the model.
Yeah.
That's great. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then I also think for us to look at, if we look at the math point of this, that in math, those RFEPs are still kind of significantly below standard. And so we have to kind of remember that as a data point, and how do we support that, that growth as well.
Well, I think that it might be something for questioning, just knowing in general what scholarship knows to be true as trends in terms of language learning and in DI programs. And so if it's not matching what scholarship shows, then Right, greater inquiry, more questions.
Great questions. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for pointing that out, because we all are excited for our students when they reclassify. I know that's a big celebration for me when it happens. And how important that is, especially with like I had a student who was in the silent stage coming into my class in first grade. That means just very little English and taking in everything that we're saying and just not putting any pressure on the student to speak. And he was a math brain and he just loved everything math. And so we just want to work to help that kid reclassify so he can continue his passion with math and the things that he loves to do. So.
And we know that the more students who reclassify because of that really effective tier 1 instruction, all boats will rise.
Yeah.
It's for everyone and it's absolutely essential and it's an equity issue. While of course I share in that celebration in the green and the red, it is incredibly alarming to me to see red for our long-term English learners. That to me is an extreme call to action.
Well, thank you for pointing that out as well. I would agree, and I like it with that equity lens.
Sorry, I just came from an equity conference.
No.
Kind of fun. So Dr. Rick's way there.
No.
It's Dr. Rick's way there too.
Yeah, no, I mean, we appreciate that feedback and those eyes. So, okay, so I think what we're gonna do, kind of just next steps. Our next meeting is March 4th. This will be at the elementary school. This is going to be kind of our, the hope is that we will finalize this program evaluation, document our recommendations as an SSC. We want to vote on this program evaluation as an SSC. So the next meeting is kind of our big one for, we need to make sure we have the quorum and the people here to vote. And then we will present this program evaluation to Dr. Shredda, and then, of course, share it with the board at that point, because we outlined this process last year. We want to kind of highlight our work. And then as far as the LCAP, our program evaluation has tons of metrics and data on it that it can be used, AEA can use for the LCAP in their annual work with capturing what's happening at school here at AEA. So any questions or comments about kind of next steps? So what's going to happen is we wanted to capture qualitative data. We wanted student voice. So we are going to send a survey, thanks to Matt. He's going to send it out to these students that the 6th graders we talked about for our first program evaluation. We want student voice for our 5th graders, 3rd through 5th graders who received some LPAC support, some prep sessions. We want to hear their voice, if that, how that was helpful. And we're going to do that, hopefully. It will all work out where we can give the survey in February, put the data in our program evaluation. So there will be, heads up, a little bit of back and forth via email in the month of February for us so that we can arrive here. And then of course we need to get the DLAC's input as well. So just a little bit of email work in between now and March meeting in order to meet this March deadline to vote on it. So I'm good. Okay, so pretty good. So I am going to adjourn the meeting, our meeting at 5:32 p.m. Thank you so much for coming and for helping us with this exciting work. So thank you. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
I only wrote the data that